We are back with, we're actually going to be starting a series this time. The last month or so that we've been talking and doing all of the NJAM conversations, we've been kind of doing one-offs. And this time we're going to actually start a 4-week series that we're really excited about. And it's called Things You Didn't Even Know You Needed as a Mom. And this goes back to us, when we became like new moms, even thinking of becoming a mom. I mean, all we kind of thought about was, oh, having a baby and how do I keep them like fed and clean and whatever. And so one of the things though that we want to highlight really quick, first off, is you got a new sweatshirt.
I did. So it's the Stay Strong, the Amanda Todd Legacy Foundation. And what I absolutely love about that is Carol Todd is exactly that, like what she didn't even know that she needed, and has turned it into something that is changing lives every day and is an inspiration to what we're doing now and continuing to carry that torch for moms and their families, their kids, and continuing to speak out for mental health and growth and change and being the best version of ourselves that we can be. So that is something that I believe very strongly in, and I know that you do too. So
Totally. And, this is a topic that is very close to our hearts. I mean, just even Amanda's story, Carol's story, that has, you were friends with Carol, and I've chatted with her a bit and watched the documentary and the story. And it's incredible and it totally like leads into also like our conversations that we've had in just starting Moms Coaching Moms.
Yeah.
Was because it was all surrounding this, things we didn't even know we needed. And so the first week that we are starting this, we actually decided to start with self-compassion and self-acceptance, because as moms, we all know we can be so hard on ourselves. And it's, I don't think that's a trained thing even necessarily. Like it's just in us. It's in us that we can be so
totally
hard on ourselves, and we can do a lot of the what ifs and should haves and would haves and could haves and get caught in that. And so it's something that the reason that we put these next 4 weeks together is because this is what we are living and what we have lived. And this is lived experience and what we're learning. And we're always learning more and going to be adding to it. So one of the things that I decided to look up, I like looking up meanings of words, and I looked up the word compassion because I'm like, I don't even know if I know the actual like official meaning of it. And it actually kind of surprised me. So compassion, it says in one place that I looked up, it said the sympathetic consciousness of distress with a desire to alleviate it. And yeah, like that just really it really sort of hit me, especially that end part of the desire to alleviate it. Because I think a lot of times as moms, like we can even know that there's something not right or something going on or anything like that. We just have no idea where to start or what to do. And so that is what's inspired this series is, okay, this is where we have found to start and where to go. And so for us, it has started with the self-compassion and self-acceptance. And what it really comes down to is, what are the stories we tell ourselves? And that was something that we were taught when we were talking about and like planning this and stuff. Really, that's what it comes down to. That's where it has to start, is what are the stories that we're telling ourselves? So for example, for me, self-compassion, it was something I never even had thought about in my life. Just not even thought, because, and when I do think of it, even now, like when I hear it, self-compassion, the first thought is, oh, you're just feeling sorry for yourself. Now, I know that's not what it is. I'm not saying that's what it is. It's not, because I truly believe we need self-compassion. But in my mind, the story that has been told to me, or I've been telling myself for all these years, is if I have compassion for myself, then I'm like feeling sorry for myself. And that's a bad thing. And compassion, I think, when we talked earlier too, you said like, oh, you can always have compassion for someone else. Like, that's a good thing. But for yourself, not so much. And so it was like, what are the stories we're telling ourselves? And so through that, actually, we've talked about, I think each week, about an assessment that we have done, the People Best, and it's a Wendy Assessment. And do you want to just tell a little bit about it? Because you're so good at that.
What I have loved about the Wendy assessment is that it really comes down to our psychological needs. And so it's not just about your personality and how you act, it's what you psychologically need. And so often we've allowed those psychological needs to be manipulated, to be adjusted some way or another. And so what this assessment does is it actually helps us unravel those stories and to be able to ask ourselves, how is this serving me and how is it not? And dialogically being able to talk it through and to put ourselves sort of in our own box, but not in a box that is not meant for us, but within the parameters of who we are and who we need to be, and how we want to move forward. And so I have loved this assessment more than any other one that I have done, because it's actually helped me look at myself and to see the things that maybe are not working for me or the things that are working for me. And so in terms of our self-compassion, what we decided to look at in the traits part is recovery time. And both of us, once again, although we are so similar in so many ways, we have once again uncovered a way that we are different, and yet our journeys, our destination seems to be the same, but how we got there has been different. And how amazingly cool is that?
Definitely. Well, and one of the things that came to me as you were talking was you and I both have like done so many different assessments. We're kind of like assessment geeks on that. Like, we love that. And one of the things that we have learned, and that is a real integral part of our moms coaching moms, is the dialogue and the dialogic process. So it's not just about like, okay, here's your results, look, there you go. It's when we go through and we do a debrief with someone and we do our NJAM conversations and we, do coaching and all of that, it is a dialogic process. It's asking questions, it's listening, it's, okay, what are the stories that you're telling yourself, and going through open questions. And like, there's so many different skills that we've learned for coaching and in our, basically sort of in our toolbox, but it's all dialogic. And that has been key for both you and I know, as we've gone through this journey, because, like you said, we are so similar in so many ways. And then we look at this, and that's what we actually found as we were going through this and picking the trait that we wanted to use this time, were the stories. So I'm going to share my screen here, and there it is, and go through this part here of, so this is my Wendy assessment, and you can see all of these different pieces to it here. We're going to go over to the traits here for today. If we can get to it. Oh, there we go. Okay. So you can see like there's like just a ton of different traits here, but we are going to the recovery time today. So if I click on recovery time, first of all, you'll see my number is a 4, and Christine, I believe yours is a 7, right? Yeah. Okay. So Christine's is a 7, and mine is a 4. And the biggest thing that we always talk about when we come into this is that there is no good or bad, right or wrong. The numbers are just information for us. It's not like there's no number that's good or bad or right or wrong or anything like that. So, and that's what made this one really interesting for us. So I am here a 4 on this line and Christine's a 7. So recovery time for this assessment means how much time it takes to regain a positive outlook after adversity. And so one of our absolute favorite parts of this is coming down and looking that you will see there's upsides and downsides to both. If we go down, there's a score legend. And then there's also here, possible reasons for low scores, possible reasons for high scores. And this is what's been the most powerful thing for us in reading through these. So I know when we were going through, you were telling the story of your 7, of where that came from, sort of, you know, again, it's always about the stories. What are the stories we learned? What are the stories we tell ourselves now? How did they come to be, and where do we go from there? So
Yeah, so a 7 means that it says that I take a significant amount of time to get beyond a setback or a crisis. I may spend time dwelling on a feeling of injustice or the wrongful or unfair nature of a crisis. And right away, that made me think of something for me that was twofold. One, I got really tired of people trying to give me a positive spin on whatever it was that I was going through. Frankly, at that moment, I didn't care about a positive spin. I actually wanted my feelings to be heard. And so I really dug my heels into it. I was like, no, I'm this. Well, the problem with that is that it was almost like I made whatever the situation was bigger and stronger than maybe what the very first moment of whatever that crisis was. So that was part of it. And the other part of it was that the story that I've had in my head for as long as I can remember. And when I say it's not that I was aware that I had a story in my head, that came a lot later. However, the story in my head was I couldn't trust anyone but myself, and only I could have my back. And so that made recovery time so much harder for me because I was constantly suspicious. I was constantly on guard. I was constantly questioning what was going on for me. And so for me, where self-compassion has come alongside is the more self-compassion I have, it's almost like the less recovery time I need. And the less self-compassion I have, the more recovery I need. So what did that mean for me? For me, the self-compassion meant that I could gain the courage, the bravery that I needed to approach the veil of what are the stories that I'm telling myself, and what would happen when I would pull that veil back. Who am I outside of those stories that I'm telling myself? And what kind of responsibility is needed in order to adjust whether those stories are serving me or not. And let's not sugarcoat it. That is not easy. And that's why
no,
self-compassion is so important. And as moms, we not only carry it for ourselves, we carry it for our kids, we carry it for each other, we carry it for the world. And so when our children are in crisis, we often feel that we are in crisis. And again, the amount of self-compassion that I can meet for myself will determine how I'm going to be able to move forward and to actually meet those crises head on, essentially. And so as I started to learn these skills, as I started to really embrace what this assessment meant to me, that self-compassion component of integrating bravery to get to pulling back that veil became even more critically important.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so for me, with my number of 4, and then we will like relate all of this and kind of like where we went with this after. But so when I looked at the 4, for me, if I go back here, recovery time. So it says here, oh, I'll get it to show up there. Recovers from crisis and setbacks relatively quickly, resuming a positive outlook and constructive activity. Recovery is not so fast that lessons cannot be learned, but emotional and physical energy is not needlessly spent. So when I first read that and I saw the number of 4 here on this page and more resilient, I thought, oh, that's a really good thing. Again, going to that good or bad, right or wrong. Because something I've learned is if something is good, that means the opposite is also true, and there will be a bad sort of component to it. And what is that? And that's usually where my pride is stuck in, and that's where I get stuck. So when I looked at this and I was like, okay, recovery time, that's really interesting to me. And then taking a read through the upsides of the low score, which I knew those really tends to be more optimistic. I mean, honestly, that is my go-to. That has been my go-to my entire life. I am like the eternal optimistic. It's something I've talked about actually for the last little while, when I realized that my optimism actually became toxic positivity. And the first time I ever heard that, in I don't know, it was a year ago, I thought, oh my goodness, that was me, toxic positivity. And, I remember, oh goodness, one of the many stories, but the one where our oldest 2 have dealt with a lot of health challenges, and we'd be driving up to the hospital to go see one of many specialists and appointments. And I actually, I don't know, it's like hard to even say, because like now I'm like, oh my goodness, why did I say that? However, it was, it was what it was. It was a story that I had told myself, and that. So I actually would tell my girls, like, hey, like we can just be thankful that, you're not living in the hospital, that we get to go home after this appointment. And I would have all these things that I would say. And not that there's anything wrong with saying that. What was not serving me and my kids well, was the fact that I was not giving space for their emotions in there. That's the part that wasn't fantastic in there. So, I get that I'm optimistic. And then when I looked at the downsides, because I thought, okay, so recovery time for me, what I took that to, again, looking at, is this adaptive or maladaptive in my life? Where I took it to a maladaptive place was I didn't even look at the reality. And for a lot of stuff that I'm going through right now in my own personal life, that is where I was stuck, because I was that eternal optimist, always just keeping on going, not looking at the reality of stuff. I guess may not learn the lesson. That definitely, could be part of it. But it's where I recognize now is that I didn't allow myself to look at a reality. I just was like, I'm resilient, I can keep going. Because what I learned was the story that I was telling myself was that I could only trust myself. Yet I was taught then I couldn't actually trust myself either. So it was this weird space that I was in my stories, in the stories for myself. And so what I've recognized is the recovery time, even though someone might look at this and go, oh, like that's a good score kind of thing, there are upsides and downsides to both. And that is where, when we look at these numbers, we don't just go, oh, okay, that's great, good for me, or oh, that's great for you, good for you, or oh, that's really bad, oh, that sucks, like kind of thing. It's like, it doesn't matter what the number is, it's what is the story behind it. And so, even down here, like that's what we had shared there, possible reasons. for the low scores. You know, like, and I don't know about you, but this is stuff that I heard throughout my life. If you're not making mistakes, you're not moving fast enough. And, you know, you just roll with the punches. And those are all fantastic things. However, taken too far, you don't even like look at reality anymore. And honestly, that is where I see that's where I got stuck in.
Well, and I'm looking at the possible reasons for a high score, and I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm a 7 out of 7. So there you go. You know. So yeah, it totally. I think that it totally fits, and the idea of then how to improve it. I love that because if it's working for you, how it is, leave it.
Yeah.
It's not that you have to change something. However, if it's not working for you for whatever reason, then it's about empowering yourself to change it. And that is where the self compassion comes in first. Look at it and ask yourself, is this serving me right now? Because maybe right in this moment, it's serving you really well. Or maybe it's not. And so this isn't about that you have to change. It's about deciding who are you and authentically walking that out. And people, it's sort of a buzzword, authentic, and I just want to be authentic. Sometimes, do you? Because do you really? Because we want to protect ourselves, and we being vulnerable takes a lot of courage. And so, if we're not sure on something, that's what this psychological needs assessment does. It helps you to unpack, and we will help you with that. We will debrief you and talk through your stories, because it's something that will help you be you, and it has made such a huge difference,
Yeah.
for us individually, together, and for our families as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like with the compassion and self-acceptance is, you know, some of the questions that we've asked ourselves is like, okay, what do I need right now? And this is asking out of total curiosity. And that can be really hard to do, is stay in curiosity. I think it can be a little bit easier sometimes with other people. It can definitely be harder with our kids because often we just think we know what they need and what they need to do. However, you know, I am learning that just because I think I know what they need doesn't mean that is what they need, because they are their own person and they know what's best. And I see it as my job to help them unlock that. And it has started with me helping myself to unlock and ask those questions in curiosity. What do I need right now? How can I, if I need validation, how can I validate myself? You know, what is the reason? And then the reason I wrote these down, because we were talking about this before. What is the reason that I might need someone else to validate me in this moment?
Yeah.
For where I'm at. And they're all out of curiosity. You know, we do our best to ask these out of curiosity, not judgment of like, because it's just being curious. And like, okay, so what is the reason that, you know, the story of recovery time is there? Because for me, I actually found that there's been a maladaptive side to that lower number of recovery time for me. And one thing that we were saying before too is that we were both actually drowning in our emotions in the stories there, yet we're sort of on opposite ends there. And you were very much drowning in like those contracting emotions.
Yeah.
I was drowning in the expanding emotions.
Yeah.
Which again, so much we would think like, well, we use expanding and contracting instead of positive and negative. And I hear so much that so many people refer to them as positive and negative emotions. So all the positive emotions are what we call the good emotions, the joy, the peace, the happiness, the acceptance, all that. And then we say like, oh, the negative emotions or the bad emotions are anger and fear and frustration and like all of that. However, when we do that, we train our brain that there is, like we're saying it, there's good emotions and there's bad emotions. And I mean, that's for another whole time too, to go into, is like, there are no good or bad emotions. Emotions just are, and we need to just accept them. And that's where we need to start with. And so, but that's where like we were both actually drowning in opposite sides of these emotions. We just didn't know it.
Yeah.
And it was through this and us having conversation and dialogue that really like opened those things up. Because
Totally.
literally until today, when we were talking about it, I was like, oh, 4, that's a really good number. Like, and then we get talking and I'm just like, whoa, wait a minute. The story that's actually going on in my head is not actually that. And so then my, like the pride of that, like actually had me stuck in that. And so, that's where, to then bring it back to like, we do need to have self-compassion. We do need to have that sympathetic consciousness of distress with a desire to alleviate it, which then can lead to the self-acceptance.
Yes.
So it's something that we're going to be talking about in our NJAM conversation this week with moms. So if you are a mom, doesn't matter. We have moms with infants, and we have moms in our groups that have grown children, gone, adult children, married. We have
grandchildren.
Yes, the whole spectrum.
Yes.
And we love to have those conversations. And it's really, I know we keep saying like, we try and explain it and we really can't. It's just something that we would just love to invite all moms to experience with us. Yes. And if you're seeing this and you're not a mom, like all of the stuff that we talk about isn't just for moms. However, we're doing this just for moms. And so if you're seeing this and you're not a mom, you can share it with someone who is, and they're more than welcome. Every Wednesday night, we have our NJAM conversations. It's at 7:00 Pacific time and 8:00 Mountain time. And we always have a link. There's a Zoom link to register. It's for free. And then and then it's like, let's have the conversations and go from there. Was there anything else you wanted to add, or where we're going with this too?
Yeah, well, we do have other services as well. And if you are interested in more in-depth things, you can reach out to us, and we do offer other things as well. We just really want to open it up to everyone to come and join us for our NJAM Wednesday night conversations. And this is something that really matters to us: the self-compassion, the self-acceptance, and opening that up to things that we didn't even know that we needed as moms. So
exactly. Yeah. And then, as I said in the very beginning, this is a series. So we're going to have 3 more weeks after this one. We're not exactly sure of the titles yet, but the next one's going to be more on like how to listen to yourself and stop criticizing yourself, which is really going to lead into like integrating bravery and intuitive living. And then we have the next one after that is going to be on self-love and self-care. And no, we're not going to be just telling people just go sit in a bubble bath. That was always my thing of like, oh, self-care. Oh, good. Now I have to go sit with candles in a bubble bath. And I just like would shut down. So, and then the last one in this series is we want to talk about boundaries. And that has been a huge one for both of us that we've learned, had to learn, chose to learn. Definitely interesting stories surrounding all those. So
definitely join us for all of them.
Yes.